We're going to be cutting regulations at a level that nobody's ever seen before. And we're going to have tremendous protection for the people, maybe more protection for the people. But instead of being 9,000 pages, it can be 100 pages. And I want you to move your companies back to the United States. And I want you to manufacture in the United States.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. When Justice Scalia passed away suddenly last February, I made a promise to the American people. If I were elected president, I would find the very best judge in the country for the Supreme Court. I promised to select someone who respects our laws and is representative of our Constitution and who loves our Constitution, and someone who will interpret them as written. This may be the most transparent judicial selection process in history. Months ago, as a candidate, I publicly presented a list of brilliant and accomplished people to the American electorate and pledged to make my choice from among that list. Millions of voters said this was the single most important issue to them when they voted for me for president. I am a man of my word. I will do as I say, something that the American people have been asking for from Washington for a very, very long time. Today, thank you. Today, I am keeping another promise to the American people by nominating Judge Neil Gorsuch of the United States Supreme Court to be of the United States Supreme Court. And I would like to ask Judge Gorsuch and his wonderful wife, Louise, to please step forward. Please, Louise, Judge. Here they come. Here they come. So was that a surprise? Was it? I have always felt that after the defense of our nation, the most important decision a president of the United States can make is the appointment of a Supreme Court justice. Depending on their age, a justice can be active for 50 years, and his or her decisions can last a century or more and can often be permanent. I took the task of this nomination very seriously. I have selected an individual whose qualities define, really, and I mean closely define, what we're looking for. Judge Gorsuch has outstanding legal skills, a brilliant mind, tremendous discipline, and has earned bipartisan support. When he was nominated to the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals, he was confirmed by the Senate unanimously. Also, that's unanimous. Can you believe that nowadays with what's going on? Yeah. Does that happen anymore? Does it happen? I think it's going to happen, maybe again. Also with us tonight is Maureen Scalia, a woman loved by her husband and deeply respected by all. I am so happy she is with us. Where is Maureen? Please stand up. Thank you, Maureen. Thank you, Maureen. She is really the ultimate representative of the late, great Justice Antonin Scalia, whose image and genius was in my mind throughout the decision-making process. Not only are we looking at the writings of the nominee, and I studied them closely, but he is said to be among the finest and most brilliant, oftentimes, the writings of any judge for a long, long time. And his academic credentials, something very important to me, and that education has always been a priority, are as good as I have ever seen. He received his undergraduate degree from Columbia with honors. He then received his law degree from Harvard, also with honors, where he was a Truman Scholar. After Harvard, he received his doctorate at Oxford, where he attended as a Marshall Scholar, one of the top academic honors anywhere in the world. After law school, he clerked on the Supreme Court for both Justices Byron White and Anthony Kennedy. It is an extraordinary resume, as good as it gets. Judge Gorsuch was born and raised in Colorado and was taught the value of independence, hard work, and public service. While in law school, he demonstrated a commitment to helping the less fortunate. He worked in both Harvard Prison Legal Assistance Projects and Harvard Defenders Program. Brilliance being assured, I studied every aspect of his life. He could have had any job at any law firm for any amount of money. But what he wanted to do with his career was to be a judge, to write decisions, and to make an impact by upholding our laws and our Constitution. The qualifications of Judge Gorsuch are beyond dispute. He is the man of our country and a man who our country really needs, and needs badly, to ensure the rule of law and the rule of justice. I would like to thank Senate leadership. I only hope that both Democrats and Republicans can come together for once for the good of the country. Congratulations to you and your family. May God bless you. May God bless our glorious nation. Judge Gorsuch, the podium, sir, is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. President, thank you very much. Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, you and your team have shown me great courtesy in this process, and you've entrusted me with a most solemn assignment. Standing here in a house of history and acutely aware of my own imperfections, I pledge that if I am confirmed, I will do all my powers permit to be a faithful servant of the Constitution and laws of this great country. For the last decade, I've worked as a federal judge in a court that spans 6 western states, serving about 20% of the continental United States and about 18 million people. The men and women I've worked with at every level in our circuit are an inspiration to me. I've watched them fearlessly tending to the rule of law, enforcing the promises of our Constitution, and living out daily their judicial oaths to administer justice equally to rich and poor alike, following the law as they find it and without respect to their personal political beliefs. I think of them tonight. Of course, the Supreme Court's work is vital not just to a region of the country, but to the whole, vital to the protection of the people's liberties under law and to the continuity of our Constitution, the greatest charter of human liberty the world has ever known. The towering judges that have served in this particular seat of the Supreme Court, including Antonin Scalia and Robert Jackson, are much in my mind at this moment. Justice Scalia was a lion of the law. Agree or disagree with him, all of his colleagues on the bench cherish his wisdom and his humor, and like them, I miss him. I began my legal career working for Byron White, the last Coloradan to serve on the Supreme Court, and the only justice to lead the NFL in rushing. He was one of the smartest and most courageous men I've ever known. When Justice White retired, he gave me the chance to work for Justice Kennedy as well. Justice Kennedy was incredibly welcoming and gracious. And like Justice White, he taught me so much. I am forever grateful. And if you've ever met Judge David Sentel, you'll know just how lucky I was to land a clerkship with him right out of school. Thank you. These judges brought me up in the law. Truly, I would not be here without them. Today is as much their day as it is mine. In the balance of my professional life, I've had the privilege of working as a practicing lawyer and teacher. I've enjoyed wonderful colleagues whose support means so much to me at this moment, as it has year in and year out. Practicing in the trial work trenches of the law, I saw too that when we judges don our robes, it doesn't make us any smarter, but it does serve as a reminder of what's expected of us. Impartiality and independence, collegiality and courage. As this process now moves to the Senate, I look forward to speaking with members from both sides of the aisle, to answering their questions and to hearing their concerns. I consider the United States Senate the greatest deliberative body in the world, and I respect the important role the Constitution affords it in the confirmation of our judges. I respect, too, the fact that in our legal order, it is for Congress and not the courts to write new laws. It is the role of judges to apply, not alter, the work of the people's representatives. A judge who likes every outcome he reaches is very likely a bad judge, stretching for results he prefers rather than those the law demands. I am so thankful tonight for my family, my friends, and my faith. These are the things that keep me grounded at life's peaks and that sustain me in its valleys. To Louise, my incredible wife and companion of 20 years, my cherished daughters who are watching on TV, and all my family and friends, I cannot thank you enough for your love and for your prayers. I could not attempt this without you. Mr. President, I am honored and I am humbled. Thank you very much.
More protests overnight as well. We saw that on the steps of the Supreme Court. And we saw that rebuke from former President Obama, who had said in his final press conference that he would speak out when he thought America's core values are at stake. ABC's Cecilia Vega has more on this from the White House. And Cecilia, so unusual for a former president to speak out this early in his successor's term.
It certainly is, George. It has only been 12 days since he's left office, and he is now speaking out in strong terms. President Trump is speaking out this morning, too. He is on Twitter calling a protest here in Washington by Democratic lawmakers a mess. Former President Barack Obama stepping out of the post-presidency shadows and into the fray, speaking to those protesters and that immigration crackdown, saying through a spokesman, citizens exercising their constitutional right to assemble is exactly what we expect to see when American values are at stake. And also taking a jab at his successor and that executive order, saying he fundamentally disagrees with the notion of discriminating against individuals because of their faith or religion. The White House playing defense.
We had 109 people that were temporarily detained. They're all in. But they were temporarily detained to make sure that the safety of the other 324 million Americans was put first. I don't see how that's a big problem.
And overnight, that fight landing right at the steps of the Supreme Court. Democratic lawmakers leading the charge in song. This land is your land. This land is my land. And tough talk.
Donald Trump has issued an executive order that is illegal, that is unconstitutional, and that is immoral.
We will fight it with everything we have, and we will win this fight.
And while the president himself says the policy is off to a good start,
We actually had a very good day yesterday in terms of Homeland Security.
this morning there is backlash from U.S. diplomats, some sending a formal objection letter expressing concern that the immigration crackdown might backfire and lead to terror attacks in the U.S. But the White House still standing its ground.
I think that they should either get with the program or they can go.
Tough words there, but there is word from the White House this morning that the Trump administration will leave intact an existing executive order from the Obama administration that protects LGBTQ rights in the workplace. George, gay and lesbian advocacy groups had feared that that might be reversed.
Yeah, but they're waiting to see if more is coming. Okay, Cecilia, thanks very much.
One of the issues that could make it all the way to the Supreme Court is the president's executive order on immigration. Tonight, hear the new backlash and the White House in damage control. The press secretary today saying this was not a, quote, ban in the first place. But President Trump used that word himself, and it turns out so did the press secretary. ABC's chief White House correspondent Jonathan Karl.
In the face of mounting legal challenges and a growing political backlash, Secretary of Homeland Security John Kelly stepped forward today to defend the extreme vetting executive order.
This is not, I repeat, not a ban on Muslims.
Despite reports that he was blindsided by the details of the executive order, Kelly insisted his staff helped write it, and he had seen several drafts himself.
Clearly, it was this whole approach was part of what then candidate Trump talked about for a year or two. So we knew all that was coming.
The Trump administration is battling these images. Families detained at airports when the ban on refugees and people from 7 majority Muslim countries went into effect. Lives in limbo. And now 2 of America's largest companies, Amazon and Microsoft, are joining lawsuits to stop the order. Speaker of the House Paul Ryan said he wasn't even told about the order until it was signed.
No one wanted to see people with green cards or special immigrant visas like translators get caught up in all of this. And so I think regrettably, the rollout was confusing.
In damage control mode, the administration announced 872 refugees will be allowed into the country this week because keeping them out would have caused extreme hardship. And the White House press secretary said today the order isn't even really a ban after all.
First of all, it's not a travel ban. I think you heard Secretary Kelly, and I apologize. I just want to make sure I get this straight.
But wait, the president himself called it a ban in a tweet just yesterday.
He's using the words that the media is using. But at the end of the day, it can't... Hold on. It can't be... It can't be... Jonathan, thanks. I'll let Kristen talk. It can't be a ban if you're letting 1 million people in. If 325,000 people from another country can't come in, that is by nature not a ban.
And Spicer himself has called it a ban twice over the past several days.
It's a 90-day ban. The ban deals with 7 countries.
And this was the president on Saturday, the day after he signed the executive order.
We're going to have a very, very strict ban, and we're going to have extreme vetting.
We tried to ask about that today.
Sean, I'll see you tonight.
The president also said a very strict ban on Saturday. He called it a very strict ban. Was the president wrong?
John Karl live at the White House. Seems like an obvious question to ask. No answer on that one as he walked away. But in the meantime, John, Republicans and this White House are furious with the Democrats for bringing the formation of the president's cabinet to a near halt.
Yeah, they're crying foul on this. In fact, only 4 of the president's cabinet level nominees have been confirmed. You can go all the way back to the 1800s and not find a president that has had so few confirmations at this point in their presidencies. And today, the Democrats worked to stall even further by refusing to show up for votes on his picks for Treasury and Health and Human Services. David?
All right, John Karl, right there at his post at the White House. John, thank you.
Hundreds of Israeli border police entered a Jewish settlement in the West Bank Wednesday to evict residents after the country's Supreme Court ruled that the homes were built on privately owned Palestinian land. The eviction of the Amona settlement brings to an end months of attempts by the Israeli government to legalize the wildcat outpost. Now, the evacuation of 250 settlers comes just hours after Israel unveiled plans for 3,000 new homes in other West Bank settlements, the third such declaration since U.S. President Donald Trump took office late last month.
Good evening. As we come on the air in the West tonight, and we begin with that breaking news. President Trump just moments ago in the East Room of the White House revealing Judge Neil Gorsuch is his pick for the Supreme Court. President Trump saying, "I am a man of my word," saying many voters told him this was their singular issue, the most important issue, the future direction of the Supreme Court. President Trump making the announcement in prime time, Judge Gorsuch and his wife Louise to the side there. The moment at this hour, a departure from previous presidents, President Trump hoping to drive up viewership. Judge Gorsuch, if confirmed, would be quite young, 49, turning 50 this year. President Trump alluding to that, saying his pick, if confirmed, could serve a very long time. President Trump, as a candidate, said he would replace the late Justice Antonin Scalia with someone who would, quote, be Scalia reincarnated. ABC's Terry Moran, who covers the Supreme Court for us tonight, he's there this evening. And Terry, a lot of comparisons to the late Justice Scalia.
Absolutely, David. Promise kept by President Trump on this score. There's no question that Neil Gorsuch has modeled his career, his thinking, his judging on Justice Antonin Scalia. He is someone who, like Justice Scalia, sticks to the letter and the text of the law and its original meaning, and he doesn't bring in the way society might have changed or what the intention of legislators might have been. He is a very Scalia-esque judge.
And Terry, even his writings have been compared to Justice Scalia, described as exceptionally clear, but one person added routinely entertaining as well.
He's a fine writer. There is a big difference between Judge Neil Gorsuch and Justice Antonin Scalia. There's nothing Justice Scalia liked more than a good fight, and you knew you were in a fight with him if you tangled with him. Judge Gorsuch has a much more collegial and kind of warmer personality on the page and in person, and that means he could perhaps build some coalitions. But this was, in the East Room of the White House, a spectacle. It was quite a moment. In the East Room tonight, President Trump.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Enjoying the primetime spotlight as he announced his Supreme Court pick, Judge Neil Gorsuch.
So was that a surprise? Was it? Judge Gorsuch has outstanding legal skills, a brilliant mind, tremendous discipline, and has earned bipartisan support. When he was nominated to the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals, he was confirmed by the Senate unanimously. Also, that's unanimous. Can you believe that nowadays with what's going on?
Yeah. Judge Gorsuch stepping forward, speaking of the honor of the moment.
Standing here in a house of history and acutely aware of my own imperfections, I pledge that if I am confirmed, I will do all my powers permit to be a faithful servant of the Constitution and laws of this great country. A judge who likes every outcome he reaches is very likely a bad judge, stretching for results he prefers rather than those the law demands. I am so thankful tonight for my family, my friends, and my faith.
Gorsuch, 49, a federal appeals court judge in Denver with sterling credentials, Harvard Law, Oxford University, known as a fine writer and a staunch conservative in the mold of Justice Scalia.
Not only are we looking at the writings of the nominee, and I studied them closely, but he is said to be among the finest and most brilliant, oftentimes the writings of any judge for a long, long time. I studied every aspect of his life. He could have had any job at any law firm for any amount of money. But what he wanted to do with his career was to be a judge, to write decisions, and to make an impact by upholding our laws and our Constitution.
But here's the court, a critical issue for Mr. Trump's supporters in the campaign, and he knew it.
You have to vote for me anyway. You know why? Supreme Court judges. Supreme Court judges.
With this appointment, the court's delicate balance won't change. President Trump's pick replacing Justice Scalia to form the four-man conservative bloc, squaring off against the four liberals, three of them women, with Justice Anthony Kennedy, 80 years old, the crucial swing vote.
You look at Scalia, and you can do that and we can duplicate that, as far as I'm concerned, it would be absolutely perfect.
The court's agenda in the coming years expected to include abortion rights cases. The battle to overturn Roe v. Wade still raging.
I am pro-life, and I will be appointing pro-life judges.
And cases driven by President Trump's nationalist agenda, like immigration and refugee issues, including the president's controversial executive order, voting rights, especially as the president claims massive electoral fraud, and the scope of presidential powers.
And so let's get back to Terry Moran live. And Terry, we know there was no action taken on President Obama's pick for Supreme Court for 10 months. Republicans would not move on it. So tonight, are the Democrats planning the same strategy? Any hints?
Well, it looks, David, like they're spoiling for a fight. Some of them call this a stolen seat because of what Republicans did to President Obama's nominee. And they're already bringing up a case that Judge Gorsuch ruled on where he said that employers do not have to provide contraceptive coverage under Obamacare if they have religious objections to that. And Democrats are going to make an issue of that, or try.
Terry Moran tonight at the court leading us off. Terry, thanks so much. And one of the There is new reporting this evening after a secret U.S. mission in Yemen turned deadly. A Navy SEAL was killed, the Pentagon now revealing his identity. Chief Special Warfare Operator William Ryan Owens from Illinois. He was part of the team raiding an al-Qaeda compound, this combat death, the first of the Trump administration. And tonight the question, did al-Qaeda know the Americans were coming? Here's ABC's Chief Global Affairs Correspondent Martha Raddatz.
The raid started going terribly wrong from the beginning. The mission targeting the al-Qaeda operations compound had been in the works for months. But as the team of Navy SEALs, flown in secretly from a U.S. warship, and dozens of partner forces approached the compound, the SEALs were met by withering gunfire. A source familiar with the raid told us today it was clear al-Qaeda knew the Americans were coming. The Pentagon says male and female combatants took up positions with heavy weapons. The intense firefight in close quarters, leaving SEAL William Ryan Owens dead, 3 other Americans wounded. An Osprey was called in to medevac the wounded, but in the darkness and dust, a hard landing left 3 more Americans injured. The Pentagon says at least 4... Al-Qaeda fighters were killed, but officials are also assessing reports that the firefight left dead the 8-year-old daughter, her picture posted online, of radical American-born cleric Anwar al-Awlaki, killed in 2011.
And Martha Raddatz with us live from Washington. Martha, as you just reported, sources telling you that al-Qaeda seemed to know the Americans were coming. The White House today did say, though, that the SEALs, quote, recovered a tremendous amount of information.
They did, David. This mission from the beginning was meant to gather valuable intelligence from that compound. It's why President Trump signed off on it. And despite al-Qaeda's efforts to fight off the SEALs, they still managed to grab electronics with data they hope will help prevent future terror attacks. David?
All right, Martha Raddatz with us tonight. Thank you, Martha.
I'm Coyote Peterson, and I'm about to enter the sting zone. 1, 2, 3. Ah! I'm talking to you. Today I'm going to intentionally take a sting to prove that not all scorpions are capable of killing you. Ah! Jeez, yeah, you got me.
All right, let's go. Let's see what we can find. And that's where we need you today. We're gonna do a little, like, flip over rocks. Go ahead and just kind of run.
Start rolling. He's got an octopus wrapped around his arm. Oh, jeez Louise.
That's so nerve-wracking because these guys can give you a pretty good bite. That is, without question, the largest octopus I have ever captured. Don't bite me, don't bite me, don't bite me, don't bite me.
Where's his beak? Underneath
there, right on my hand right now.
Uh-huh.
That is a monster octopus right there. Woo!
Let's just put him back. We don't want him to be,
Watch the color change. It's going to set itself down like that. Look at how it's just camouflaged.
And now he's totally camouflaged. I can
Totally
barely see him.
camouflaged. And this is where, if we were doing an episode, I'd point to the camera, say, be brave, stay wild. We'll see you on the next adventure.
What I've seen on NYU's campus and what I've seen in polls all over, in CNN even, a Harvard University poll last May showed that people between the ages of 18 and 29, not just Democrats, not just leftists, 51% of people between 18 and 29 no longer support the system of capitalism. And that's not me asking you to make a radical statement about capitalism, but I'm just telling you that my experience is that the younger generation is moving left on economic issues. And I've been so excited to see how Democrats have moved left on social issues. As a gay man, I've been very proud to see you fighting for our rights and for many Democratic leaders fighting for our rights. But I wonder if there's anywhere you feel that the Democrats could move farther left to a more populist message, the way the alt-right has sort of captured this populist strain on the right wing. If you think we could make a more stark contrast to right-wing economics.
Well, I thank you for your question, but I have to say we're capitalist, and that's just the way it is. However, we do think that capitalism is not necessarily meeting the needs with the income inequality that we have in our country. And let me just tell you this. I don't know how much time we have. About 40 years ago, a little bit more now, no less a person in terms of capitalism than the chairman of the Standard Oil of New Jersey said. He talked about stakeholder capitalism. Capitalism that said when we make decisions as managements and CEOs of the country, we take into consideration our shareholders, our management, our workers, our customers, and the community at large. At that time, the disparity between the CEO and the worker was about 40 times more for the CEO than the worker. As productivity rose, the pay of the worker rose and the pay of the CEO rose. Everything rose together. Around 20 years ago, it started to turn into, maybe 15, 20 years ago, it started to turn into shareholder capitalism, where we're strictly talking about the quarterly report. So a CEO would make much more money by keeping pay low, even though productivity is rising, the worker's not getting any more pay, and the CEO is getting a big pay because he's kept costs low by depriving workers of their share of the productivity that they created. And as I call it, a right angle going in the wrong direction. The disparity between the CEO and the worker into the shareholder capitalism is more like 350 to 400 to 1. From 40 to 1 to 350 to 400 to 1.
And then you think I've seen this before? I just...
Dory lives in Australia, and these are her parents, and they live in America, and I don't know what religion they are, but her dad sounds a little Jewish, doesn't matter. She ends up at the Marine Life Institute behind a large wall, and they all have to get over the wall. And you won't believe it, but that wall has almost no effect in keeping them out.
Trump hosted a screening of the movie Finding Dory. Trump said he actually related more to Finding Nemo because that was about an orange and white cartoon.
Here they come. Here they come.
In a primetime reveal, President Trump unveiling Judge Neil Gorsuch as his nominee to the Supreme Court.
I only hope that both Democrats and Republicans can come together for once for the good of the country.
As this process now moves to the Senate, I look forward to speaking with members from both sides of the aisle.
Setting up a battle between Senate Republicans,
I think it was an absolute home run,
and Democrats, who were vowing a confirmation fight after President Obama's nominee to fill the seat of the late Justice Antonin Scalia was blocked for 10 months.
If I conclude that he is out of the mainstream on issues like privacy rights, including women's health care and Roe v. Wade, or worker and consumer protection, I will use every tool at my disposal to block his nomination.
For the White House, it's a chance to turn the spotlight from the growing backlash over the president's executive order on immigration and refugees. The fallout continuing, with more than 900 State Department diplomats signing a memo of dissent against the travel ban. House Speaker Paul Ryan admitting the rollout was unusually rough.
Regrettably, the rollout was confusing, but on a go-forward basis, I'm confident that Secretary Kelly is going to make sure that this is done correctly.
Ryan speaking about Homeland Security Secretary John Kelly, who is in charge of implementing the action, an action he defended despite chaotic scenes and flip-flopping on green card holders.
We knew it was coming. It wasn't a surprise it was coming, and then we implemented it.
Meantime, the White House is trying to rebrand the order.
That is by nature not a ban.
I understand your point.
It is extreme vetting.
Yet ban is exactly how the president and his press secretary, Sean Spicer, described the action.
We're going to have a very, very strict ban.
It's a 90-day ban. The ban deals with 7 countries.
Pressed on the point, Spicer provided no clarity, instead taking aim at a familiar target.
No, I'm not confused. I think that the words that are being used to describe it are derived from what the media is calling this.
Despite legal challenges and protests, the administration is signaling it has no plans to change the order. 3 high-ranking Republican senators saying they were told the White House will not be rewriting its controversial travel ban.
Mark, you're the owner of the Dallas Mavericks, as we all know. The NBA put out a statement actually reacting to the ban. I don't know if everyone knows this, but in part it read, the NBA is a global league and we are very proud to attract the very best players from around the world. Will the ban hurt America, hurt American business,
yeah, it's
hurt
horrible.
our standing?
Look, let's just be real clear. The ban was half-ass, half-baked, right? If the goal was security, why do you leave off most of the, any other countries that hosted terrorism? That's like locking your front door and leaving all your windows open, and then blaming the Obama 7 on, and matching up the Obama 7 countries to the previous owner, because that's what they did. It was half-baked. It wasn't thought out. It was rushed. It was ridiculous. And when something like that happens, it calls into a question the management skills of the guy in charge.
I voted for Trump, and I voted for him because of this immigration policy. It is time to put America first. Me and my whole family support him, and we are Hispanic and Mexican and Native American.
I feel so much safer on an airplane now. I feel so much safer walking around the United States of America.
My background is not Muslim, but it's Cuban. Thank God that somebody is tightening the borders and they're going to properly vet these people, even if it means keeping most of them out. They don't have the right to be here to begin with. They have no constitutional rights to be here. They're here by the grace of God, just like I'm here by the grace of God.
I am a refugee from Latvia, and I was legal refugee. And I went through the right way to be selected, get my documents, and I wish everybody will do the same. We want safe